Hello everyone. I'm doing a video I'll occasionally be going over movies that I've seen to watch and the message and the significance behind them. And I'm going to start with this movie called Disobedience. Now, Disobedience is a movie. I started watching it a few nights ago, and I figured I'll go ahead and this is a Netflix movie, but it's also probably been a movie that's been around. I don't know how well known it is, but I think it's very interesting. It's a movie about the Hasidic Jewish people and some of their traditions. Now, this movie, surprisingly, since I didn't really know what it was dealing with homosexuality in one specific homosexuality incident and how it would have been handled in a Hasidic Jewish community. Now, actually, this was rather shocking to me because I thought when I saw the movie that it was going to be about a lady who didn't want to stay in the community because she'd rather get a job and be a career woman in New York or something. And what it ends up being is a woman who had to leave the community to go to New York to work. She couldn't come back and she can't back because her father died. But she really had to leave the community because she was a lesbian and didn't want to tell everybody she was a lesbian. Well, interestingly enough, she was friends with a couple, like a guy that got married to her friend. All three of them were best friends or something, the guy and two ladies. They just had a nice friendship together. So this guy ended up marrying her friend, and her friend was also called her to let her know that her father died. Otherwise, the community would not have bothered to tell her. Now, I don't know, I wasn't up on if she actually left the community and they knew she was a lesbian, or she left because she didn't want to tell them she was a lesbian. I'm not quite sure how that all worked out. But when she came back, they certainly figured it out. Okay, and the reason why is because she was actually a lesbian participating with her friend that married the guy. So he was married to a woman who was actually a lesbian friend of his friend, another woman. I was okay. Anyway, this is supposed to be a story to implicate that religious groups are too hard on homosexuals. This is the whole point of that movie, was to have people sympathize with homosexualities in these very special religious groups, and some people would consider them cults. Personally, I don't think the Hasidic Jewish community is a cult. That was a community that existed long before it even came over to the States. And they have a very interesting history, but they're not a cult. They're actually a specific religious group. Just like the Mennonites, just like the Amish. I don't consider them cults just because, they have certain religious beliefs. But anyway, to make a long story short, these women were romantically involved, if you would say, or sexually involved. And of course, the community did not approve of it. So they couldn't stay in the community like that. And come to find out, the one that got married was pregnant, and she still wanted to leave out of the marriage because she was wanted to live in her lesbian lifestyle. Okay, now all of this is, it's you kind of have to say, all right, these are young women. When they're growing up, they get involved in in a relationship, and how do you even figure that out at such a young age? A lot of these women get married when they're like 14, 15 years old. Okay? So it's hard for me to understand, because what they do is they train the women before they get to know anything about anything like that. They're already indoctrinating them into they're having to be mothers and wives. They don't have an opportunity to explore everything else. This is why I got kind of confused. Okay? So anyway, this was not acceptable in the community, of course. So they had to take a court hearing, a sort of like a group meeting. What are we going to do about this situation over here? We can't let this sit around in the community. It'll fester and rot and ruin everybody else. Or for all I know, they're thinking, it's like treating it like a criminal case. Okay, we're going to let crime continue in the community, or we're going to nip it in the bud. We got to do something. But it just makes them look like a bunch of tyrants because they don't want to accept deviant sexual behavior, what they would consider deviant sexual behavior. Now, according to some of the snippets I hear from here and there, these groups are very, very conservative about sexual activity, even amongst married people. Okay, they don't allow the options of outside of marriage sex, experimental sex, they're very specific. Even when a married couple have sex, they say, oh, you can only have it on Friday night. You certainly can't have it during a menstrual cycle. You can't do this, you can't do that. I mean, they have to tell you every little thing. Even how to take care of yourself, or how to clean yourself, or what to wear to bed. They actually tell these people what they can wear to bed as pajamas. Okay, now I'm serious, y'all. I mean, you think a group like that can adapt to accepting homosexuality in the community? I don't think so. And God forbid if it's the transgender situation or anything else that comes up. Dealing with homosexuality is something they will never accept. Okay, and the thing is, women are obligated to be married and have several children. Now, being that their population is a little low, that might not be a bad idea, to reinforce that so they can have many people. Because the fewer people you have, the less likely you are going to have a huge influence on a population. If you're the fewest of the population, chances are your numbers are going to speak for themselves politically. But I digress. If you are going to practice sexual, I should say, variations outside of what they prescribe to be the proper thing to do, they're going to take issue with it because it does affect their community in the sense that, one, there's no reproduction. They definitely encourage reproduction, y'all. Okay, the average Jewish lady will have 10 kids. They consider if you don't have like at least 5 or 6, you're not even a woman to speak of. You haven't had any kids. So can you imagine? Why would they condone what would be a counteracting of that? Why? Now, I'm not saying that I think that I want them to, I think like them or anything like that. Let's not get it twisted. I'm not mad at the, trying to bash homosexuals or anything like that. But I'm just saying, trying to help you understand why they don't accept it in some of these very religious communities. Because, one, they don't have a whole lot of education when it comes to sex particularly, and probably not even about biology. Okay, they're not highly sophisticated people when it comes to all rules of thought. I'm not saying that as a put down. It's just they want their lives to be simple and to the point. They don't want a whole lot of excess, okay? So they stick to the things that make families thrive. Women who reproduce a lot of children and businesses that can support those families. And also land and real estate, something that they can stay in and survive in and thrive in. This is what these people care about. Okay? All that extra stuff, they ain't got time for it. Okay? So, I'm speaking for, the Hasidic Jewish people are an example of where these people wanted to be obnoxious and say, these people are so horrible because of how they did these ladies. I'm going to be real honest with you. I felt sorry for the man who had a lesbian wife who didn't let her know that she was a lesbian, okay? I felt sorry for the child that she's going to have that's going to get mixed up in a big mess now. I feel sorry for the community for the embarrassment that this woman is cheating on her husband with another woman, much less a man. I mean, that's a terrible embarrassment to people. Just to know that your wife is running around on you in some communities, it's a terrible disgrace. Now, he lost his rabbi status. He didn't get to be a rabbi. He chose not to be one because of this. That ruined his life. Okay? The lady herself, if she left the community, she would not have their support or protection. These women don't get out of school with a high education and job skills. What is she going to do to work and make a living? Now, that other one probably took some money with her that, inheritance money that they will. Sometimes the Jewish communities like that will support people, even though they're not living in the community anymore. They let them have money because they say, well, just don't come back, please. We'll pay you to stay away. Okay, they'll do it. Believe me, that's just common sense. They want to protect their reputation, their status. If they can get rid of you and pay you to stay away, they'll do it. And something like that is enough of a disgrace and discomfort to them that they will be willing to ensure that person has to disappear. Now, another thing. I know people need to discuss this more honestly. They need to discuss it more. Why would you want somebody who's lying to you about their sexual orientation? You're not going to change them. They're not going to all of a sudden be different just because you don't want them to be that way. It is what it is. They are not going to change just because you want to be something. What's going to end up happening, they're going to go around lying to everybody. So that's why I think they should just be allowed to speak up about it so everybody knows the real deal. You're not in marrying somebody on the down low and all that, because that's dangerous. That's very dangerous. But I'll get into that in another conversation. But as far as this movie called Disobedience is concerned, I thought it was a very thought-provoking movie. But it was also one of those movies I will never watch again because it's upsetting. It's very upsetting. And I disagree with them lying to that guy, upsetting the whole community, disrupting the whole community, ruining a future person's life over their sexual deviation, which is considered a deviation in their community. Simple as that. All this could have been avoided with more honesty and integrity. If they really thought they were like that. And see, the thing is, they don't really know if they were like that or not. Because like I said, these women are young when they get married. They're not even 20 years old. They don't know what they want when they're as young as 14 or 15. That's why they marry them off. First of all, a woman can get expensive to support. So their families like to marry those girls off when they're young and make sure that they're virgins before they even get them in another family. Because that's a legacy that they're preserving. And another thing is, they want to make sure no diseases can be spread throughout the community. So if she's fooling with anybody, if it's another man, woman, or whatever the heck, that's never going to be right, because they can spread a disease through that community very quickly if they go outside. Okay, if they go outside of the community for anything, or if the man, if he's sleeping with any other women or anything like that, he could bring that home and the whole community gets infected. So that is one of the reasons why this movie was thought-provoking to me. I have to say, when you're within a community, you know it's strict like that. You decide you're going to follow those rules, or you just go ahead and leave them and say, listen, I don't want to live like this anymore, so I'm going to go ahead and live my life. But don't stay in the community thinking that you're going to break their rules, break their laws, and everything else. Just like if you go to a different country. In certain countries, there's certain rules, bylaws, and everything. They don't stop people from leaving the community. If the Hasidic Jewish and a lot of those very conservative groups do, they don't force people to stay. That's why they're not cults. Okay? If you don't want to live with them no more, if you don't want to be their religion anymore, if you don't believe the way they believe, you don't want to behave the way they recommend, you can say, listen, I want to learn. I want my freedom. I want to go. That way, they spare the community of the embarrassment, for one thing. And two, they give up their protection. They give up their that's the biggest thing in those communities, is security and protection for women. And you don't get it if you got to get out in this mean world out here. You don't even have an education to support yourself. But like I said, they can give them money to stay away. So they can make it out there. They save up and give the outcasts their money to stay outcasts, so they don't come running back home saying, oh, mommy, I can't make it out here. Come let me in. No. Don't let them even come back and visit. As you can see, she could go back to her community. And they, a lot of them ignored her. They didn't even want to talk to her. But they said, okay, are you really back or not? But you can't have your cake and eat it too. That's what I'm saying. You're going to be part of a community like that. You agree and willingly are part of that community. And you must follow their recommendations, if you will. So that's my whole analysis of that. I can think of a few more things, but I can't at this point in time. I will be reviewing movies just so you understand, my concept of it, because a lot of people, they buy into these movies being created to be supportive of a certain agenda. And I'm not supporting agenda just over, sympathy. It's got to actually make sense to me. So this is a pure example of that. So that's my analysis of Disobedience, the movie. Check it out on Netflix. It's an interesting movie. Have a good one, and thanks for listening.